As the 1910s were drawing to a close, the saxophone craze was just beginning, sparked by vaudeville and ragtime artists like the Six Brown Brothers and Rudy Wiedoeft. It was the latest novelty, and anyone could learn. Comparative to many other instruments, the saxophone actually is easy to learn at first. One can quickly make a passable sound with a working instrument and some basic instruction, and the fingering is much more straightforward and forgiving than the clarinet. But it isn't without its challenges. The lower register can be troublesome, and beginners often overuse their tongue in articulating the notes, producing a ghastly honking as the reed reacts in panic. Slap-tonguing is one result of exactly this sort of reed abuse, but when applied by a skilled player in the right context, it is an expressive and impressive effect. It's achieved by creating suction with one's tongue against the reed, then letting go to allow the reed to slap back against the mouthpiece. Here's what typical 1920s slap-tonguing sounds like on the saxophone and clarinet. The internet abounds with many excellent resources for learning the various types of slap-tonguing. Of more interest to me is how one goes about applying these techniques to playing old jazz. Inspired by Rudy Wiedoeft and his novelty saxophone features, slap-tonguing became a skill to be applied in set-piece displays. Typically, it's the final chorus in a series of variations on a theme, wowing the audience like a cornet player finishing off the Carnival of Venice. Lauren McMurray was an early master of using these slap-tongue choruses in a jazz context. A virtuoso who tragically died before his 25th birthday, McMurray is heavily featured on just about every record he made. Check him out on Eddie Leonard Blues with Lannon's Southern Serenaders, as he launches into a slap-tongue chorus sparkling with syncopated perfection. Better known to jazz fans than McMurray, Stump Evans is curiously underrated, even though he recorded with King Oliver and Jelly Roll Morton. His slap-tonguing has been denigrated as a corny effect by jazz critics who understand neither the context nor the difficulty of its performance. Stump Evans applied slap-tongue like a seasoning throughout his playing, rather than confining it to specific choruses. He used it particularly well in breaks, applying rhythmic drive even as the rhythm section itself is suspended. Here he is, with King Oliver, on Alligator Hop. One of my favourite slap-tongue players is Louis Waunakee, alto sax player with Piron's New Orleans Orchestra. He doesn't display the virtuosity of McMurray or Evans, but I love the way he applies slap-tongue judiciously in hot ensembles. It's not the featured sound, instead bubbling under the surface, pushing things along from within. You can hear him doing this in the final chorus of Bouncing Around. One of the giants of jazz saxophone from the 1920s onwards, Coleman Hawkins began his career as a slap-tongue whiz. In later years, anxious about perceptions of good taste and vain about his age, Hawk would sometimes deny his presence on these records. But with the passage of another 50 years or so, it's possible to appreciate his early efforts for what they are, awesome displays of rhythmic intensity. Here he is on Dicty Blues with Fletcher Henderson. They made a few different records of this, but this one is the slappiest. It's more challenging to slap tongue on the clarinet because the reed is smaller, so it requires more control to grip the reed with one's tongue. So-called gas pipe clarinetists often use the technique, but here's an example of a superb slap chorus by Albert Nicholas with Richard M. Jones. He uses the effect to add a little bit of grit to his refined Creole approach on New Orleans shags. Whether it was used as a novelty effect, a virtuosic display, or a rhythmic device, slap-tonguing was a vital part of 1920s jazz. Tastes changed, and the technique fell out of favour, but this simply reflects a change in fashion, not effectiveness. Indeed, one of the most impressive musical displays I've ever heard features slap-tongue. Marvel at the sound of Stump Evans' alto sax break on the alternate take of Jelly Roll Morton's Wild Man Blues. You'll want to listen to it over and over again, just to convince yourself it really happened.